Good morning. How was everybody's weekend?
Pretty good. How about yours?
It always seems like it's kind of, well, it never seems to be long enough because you always have a list of stuff to get done and it never gets done. But
Yeah,
on the other
that's
hand,
very true.
more gets done than it would if nothing got done. So that's nice.
Yeah.
Has everybody gotten their kids?
Yep.
Yep.
And okay, that's one person. Uh, let's see. Today is the 17th. The first code word for today is banana. And let's see. Shelby is here. Let's see. Amelia.
Hello.
Hi. Are you Whiting or Taylor today?
I can be whatever. Taylor's fine.
Okay, let's see. And Lydia, you're here.
Yes, I am.
Kenya. Is it Kenya or Kenya?
Kenya.
Kenya. Okay. And it's Kira, right?
Yeah, Kira, you got it.
Okay. All right, excellent. I was hoping for at least 5 people today, and we got 5 people. Excellent. Now, the question I have, a couple questions. I'm going to ask, oh, and we got another couple people joining. Let's see. Samantha, Sam. Let's see. And Elvin. Is that right?
Yeah, Elvin.
Okay. Excellent. Have any of you not gotten your kit yet? Has everybody gotten their kit?
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Who has not received their book yet?
Mine should come today.
Yeah, mine should come today as well.
Okay.
Mine's not coming till Wednesday.
Same.
You know, if you get it this week, I think that'll be just fine. So let's go through. There's 7 people here. Just let me know if you received your book in your hands already. Shelby, have you gotten your book?
Yeah, I've got mine.
Okay, excellent. Kira, did you get yours?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Let's see. Elvin, yours says yours is going to come day after tomorrow.
Yeah, mine it says that it was gonna be in between the 19th and the 24th. I checked Amazon and it says that it's shipped already, so I'm not 100% sure. Like it should be here Wednesday, I hope so.
I'd be really surprised if it wasn't here by Saturday. Yeah. So that's good news. Kenya, do you have your book already?
Not yet, but it's coming.
Okay, good. Lydia?
It is on its way.
All right, excellent. Sam, have you gotten your book?
It's also on its way.
Okay. And Amelia?
It should be here today.
Okay, excellent. As soon as you guys get the physical book, just drop me an email and I'll mark you down. Let's see. And we have a new person who just joined us, I believe. Is that right? 1, 2, 3. No. Okay, we got the right number. Okay, today we have an hour and a half. I wanted to do a very quick introduction to the class and answer any questions people have towards the end. And I wanted to go over, if we can, I'd like to go over the first 2 quizzes, if we can do that. somebody has already started turning in things. Does anybody remember what I've been saying about due dates? Does anybody read those portions of the emails that I've sent to everybody or in the syllabus?
Didn't you just say that the due dates, you'd be reviewing them and changing them?
That was one of the two things I said. The other one was that everything is due on the last moment of finals. And the due dates are there specifically to kind of help you gauge your progress. And so a couple of people have panicked about, my book isn't here, the first quiz is due, what do I do? And I think my response has been kind of irritating because I've told people not to worry about it. Of course, as an instructor, I don't have to worry because I'm not the one who's paying for the class. But if you guys don't have the quiz and the quiz is open book, it's kind of hard to do that without having the textbook in front of you. So if that's the case, I'd say just do the quiz as soon as the textbook shows up and do the best you can. It's going to be really difficult if people don't stay on top of the projects because we are moving pretty fast. But for things like quizzes and things like that, if you don't have the book, I'd wait. As soon as you get the book, go ahead and do it. And the best way to take the quiz, in my experience, shortly after the Earth's crust started cooling when I was in school, we would read the whole chapter, read it again, highlight it, read it a third time, and then take the quiz or the test or whatever. For you guys, what I'm hoping that you'll do is a little bit more efficient. Just have the textbook in front of you. When you come to a question, go through those two chapters or the chapters involved until you find the answer and put the answer down. I really honestly don't expect you to read this thing like a novel, but it is very helpful to go through and use it as a resource for an open book reference as you take your quiz. That makes sense to everybody? I do not expect you guys to memorize the information. That'd be pretty wild if you did, but I don't expect you to. For the idea about the attendance, I'm hoping it makes sense. I'm going to write something up and put that on the I'm sorry, it'll be a module, but it won't be like a module with any assignments or points or anything like that. It would be just something to read. Everybody's schedules are really wonky. Most of you have taken this class because you have work schedules and just things that are odd. I am requiring that everybody comes to 5 live sessions during the term, but those live sessions could be any of the ones that you want, any of them that fit into your schedule. And if 3 or 4 of you are having issues with the same question and we set up another Teams meeting, that's also something else that can count towards that live attendance. In addition to that, everybody needs to watch an email or watch the recorded sessions and then email me the code words. The first one, I put all the code words together. The rest, the code words will be kind of spaced out randomly during the term. I mean, not during the term, during the course of the meeting. And the whole reason for that is to incentivize somebody to leave that on the full time until they get the third code word. And leaving it on, I mean, when you watch it, I don't expect you to eliminate distractions. What I'm actually imagining is that everybody will have this on in their AirPods or their earbuds when they're doing their work and other stuff. So you just have it on the background. And that's completely fine. Okay, this, I don't know, can you guys, let's see. There we go. Can you guys see that? This is my copy of the textbook. It's the second edition. I got this one for $6.99 on eBay plus $2.99 shipping. What is the cheapest anybody got their textbook for?
I got mine for $7, free shipping.
Awesome. That's great.
Mine for $6.30 with shipping.
That is not bad at all. Excellent. Very good. A lot cheaper than I took one of the philosophy classes I was in. One of the textbooks was $160. That really kind of sucked. And that was like in the mid 90s. So now it's probably even worse. So that is not bad at all. Now I'm going to, does anybody have a quick question about those things that I just talked about? And keep in mind too that I'm also taking the live stream online course that UVU offers faculty, so that hopefully within the 3 weeks or so, things will be a lot smoother and it'll make a lot more sense to you. But things will be changing and flexing throughout. So I understand that everybody needs to be flexible, and I hope that you guys appreciate that as well. And so please do not freak out about anything. Just let me know when you have concerns or questions or anything. Does anybody have any comments or questions about that first little bit we just talked about?
I do real fast.
Okay.
So I have work at 9:15. Do I still get credit for coming if I'm here for the majority of the live sessions?
I've marked you down as coming, and I think that that's fine. We're going to go past that a little bit. If you don't hear the third code word, I guess you don't have to hear the rest of it. But if we're not done going through the quiz, I would recommend jumping onto YouTube and checking out the tail end so you can get those last couple review questions.
Okay, awesome, will do.
All right. There was something else that was really important. I cannot remember what it was. Hopefully the earth won't come to a shuddering halt because I forgot it, and it will come back to me later. But I'm going to do a screen share and pull up the first quiz in just a second. Here we go. And we're going to go through it, and I'm going to go through and just talk about things. If you have any questions, you can answer them. And I will also ask for some involvement as well. So let's see. All right, here we go. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
All right, excellent. This quiz is from the first two chapters of our textbook, chapters 1 and 2. And we're just going to go through this and talk about it. There are a couple questions that ordinarily you'd think the answers would be one thing, but because we're referencing the text, the answers are different. And that's true of every quiz, and we kind of throw one of those ringers in just to make sure that you're fiddling with the textbook itself. So the three main factors that affect the cost of a work of art: time, materials, and tools. Is that true or false?
I think it's true.
Yeah, you're right. It is true. There are a lot of other factors, but as we generate a cost, those are the things that go into it. Very good. Is this true or false? Photographs usually distort our perception of 3D work.
True.
Yes, absolutely. What can anybody think of one aspect that makes photographs distort perception?
The light and shadows.
Yeah, you're not seeing the object in time. You're seeing it at one specific moment, and especially if the photograph generates a flash of any sort, it's going to distort it by light. Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple others are focal length. You don't really get to see it except for one perspective, and that perspective has a very limited window of focus. And you also kind of miss out the opportunity to experience the artwork through time. You know, except for when you can everybody hear me? Somebody's using a machine in the background. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, now here's a good question. Sculptors generally do not need to consider the place where their work will be presented. Is that ever true?
No.
I guess I don't know of very many circumstances when it would this would uh, let's see. I'm sorry. Let me. The question is true or false. Sculptors generally do not need to consider the place where their work will be presented. As artists, all of us, I mean, that's one of the biggest concerns that we have. How is the work going to be presented? Where is it going to fit? What's the context? So for this particular question, sculptors generally do not need to consider. This is definitely false because you're right. This is you always have to consider. I mean, you're holding a conversation with an unknown viewer. You need to be aware of how that person is or that individual is going to be viewing or experiencing your work. And that's true for anything that you produce. So again, the answer for question number 3, the odd way it's worded, is false. Okay, are there some sculptors that rely on photographs for their work to be experienced?
Yes, Andy Goldsworthy is one of them.
Yeah. Slinkachu is another one. But there's several sculptors like that. There's some calligraphists that I know who, because their work is so difficult to get to, they have to rely on photography. So yeah, absolutely. So the answer to question 4 is true. Now here's question 5. Instead of asking this, what is the dimension that is unique to 3D work? Is it height?
I would think it would have
No.
to be depth.
Yeah, both of you are right. It is not height, so the answer to this is false. But the other voice I heard said that it would have to be depth. Absolutely. When we're doing with even animation for 3D animation, you're still dealing with an aspect ratio screen, so you're still dealing with height and width. Three-dimensional stuff, that's when you start dealing with depth. That's the dimension unique to 3D work, or that's the third dimension. You're also dealing with time as well, but I think that's with most art. Now, question number 6: does anybody know what a maquette is?
It's like a small version of your final product.
Right, absolutely. And I'm convinced that they use the French term just so that we can justify to our families the cost of our degrees. But are using maquettes or working with maquettes the only way to plan 3D work?
No.
Right. You're absolutely right. The answer to question number 6 is false. Maquettes are not the only way to plan 3D work. A lot of the times, just like with 2D work, as you're going along, what you're doing informs the next choices that you make. Sometimes you have everything planned out in your head. Sometimes you have it planned out in a maquette. There are almost as many different ways of planning 3D work as there are artists that work on it. All right, now I'd like to hear from maybe 3 different people. Each of you, would you give me a separate reason why an artist should consider their audience? And since this is asking for only one on the question, you can give all sorts of different answers.
who the audience is will impact the meaning of the work and how it's interpreted.
Yes, absolutely. So you're talking about the governing of response. Very good. Anybody else? What if you want to sell something?
You have to consider your audience when you're selling your work, because that depends on how much you can sell it for.
Yes, very good. Excellent. If you are putting work in one of these low-cost art fairs, it's going to be specifically different than if you have been invited to participate in a boutique, an artist boutique of some sort. So yes, very good. What's the third reason? Well, there are at least a half a dozen, I think, that the textbook talks about. A third one that I'm thinking of a lot is context. You can show one piece in the context of fellow students, and it's going to be received in a completely different way than if you show it in the context of a mall store display, or something that I'm considering all the time. A lot of the work that I do deals with intersection of worldviews and religions and spirituality. When that's the case, I have to design a show for display at a library, a public library with kids, in a lot different way than if I'm designing a show for professional clergy. It's a completely different kind of perspective and environment in which to set up a show. So those three things that we talked about, I think the first one, it was dealing with, how are they going to receive it? Second one was how are we going to sell the work? And the third one dealt with the context of the audience. So yeah, and there's several other reasons, but all you got to do is just list one. Okay, here's a really good one that is talked about in the text, and the text version of this answer is slightly different than what you would expect. What's the big difference between fine arts and applied arts? First, what are applied arts? Does anybody know what those are?
I can't remember exactly, but isn't it like something that you use?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It seems to have a practical purpose. And then if that's separate or different from fine arts, what do you then, or what can you then extrapolate that fine arts are? I'll give one example. Applied arts are television ads. Fine arts are movies. Applied arts are furniture. Fine arts would be sculpture in a pedestal or in a niche. Applied art would be a graphic illustration designed to sell something. Fine art would be a painting. The biggest difference between, or one of the biggest difference between our contemporary conception of fine arts and applied arts is that applied arts serve a practical purpose and serves an immediate need or use. And fine arts are designed more to be enjoyed and appreciated for what they are. And that's the biggest difference between the two things. They both serve a function. One is the function is to be used in a practical way, and the other, the function is to be enjoyed or appreciated. Anybody have any questions about that? All right. Now this is a really big one. A couple people have already taken the quiz and have tried answering this. What is the correct answer for this one? What are the two extremes of material choice in sculptural works pointed out in the text? Have you guys ever seen like settings for a play where they have like a fake fruit in a bowl so that it looks real on stage, or fake food that people are supposed to pretend to eat? Or have you ever seen like the Sculpey type food that you can get for dollhouses, where it's made out of clay but it looks like the real thing? Has any of you ever seen any of that kind of stuff? I'm sure that all of us have had like a grandma or an aunt that put fruit in a bowl and it wasn't ever real fruit. It was like paper mache or glass or something. Have you guys ever seen some stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And have you ever seen a really beautiful like kitchen table, for example, where the wood grain, the wood is so finely polished and sealed that you can really feel the wood grain and it almost feels soft and it glows? You ever experienced that? Just a really nice piece of furniture?
Yeah.
Okay. Those are the two extremes of material choice. In the first one, the Sculpey or the foam or the plastic or the glass are manipulated specifically to look like something else. A lot of the times, sculptors will do things like apply texture to steel so that the steel feels different than what you would expect, or visually it looks different than what you'd expect. Examples of this are also like there are several artists that will do still lifes out of ceramic, where everything looks pretty real, but it's all made out of something completely different. And then the other extreme material choice is like when we talk about really fine wood furniture, the artist that's working on it just explores the wood and uses it in such a way that the wood is just presented in its best possible light. So the best way to define those two extremes are when an artist uses materials and pushes them as far away from what they originally were as possible, trying to make them look like something else, either mimicking something else or something other than what they are completely. And then the other extreme is where the artist explores what the material is and allows that material to have its own voice. So where steel looks like steel and feels like steel, or where wood really feels and looks like wood, or ceramic feels and looks like ceramic, and you just enjoy the glazes and the beauty of the material itself. So everybody understand those two extremes?
Are hyper realistic sculptures, do they apply to that? I forget the name of the artist, but the guy who did like the two tourists, is that the same thing?
Yeah. Do you want to know what material he used?
Yeah.
He would use fiberglass and silicone. And he's making those things look like basically human flesh, isn't he?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, and that's a really good question, because when somebody does hyperreal stuff, most of the time, they're not going to be able to find a model that will want to stay still during the duration of the exhibit. So they're forced to use a denser material. But yeah, that is a really good example of one of those two extremes. Is using a static material to represent flesh. Some of the examples where this is kind of pushed a little does anybody know of Michelangelo's Pieta, where Mary is holding her son who just was pulled down from the cross? It's a marble that was carved and polished, but as she's holding her son, you can kind of see her fingers press into what you imagine the flesh would be, but it's all out of stone. And it's so beautifully done that even though the marble really shows the gorgeous qualities of the material itself, it also is done to mimic the softness of flesh. So I think that's a good example of something that dances right in between those two. But yeah, does anybody have any other questions about those two extremes of material choice? Okay, I would like somebody else to reiterate. What are the two extremes of material choice? Can anybody state the two?
I can do it.
Okay, go for it.
So the first one is when the material is manipulated specifically to look like something else, to mimic something else. And then the other one is when the artist explores what the material is and allows it to have its own voice.
Very nicely put. Yes, exactly. Very well done. Let's see, and it's kind of funny because the answers I get on this will vary quite a bit, but it generally comes down to whether things are static or whether they have motion. And the material choice is quite different than the movement of the piece. So yeah, please keep in mind those two extremes. Very good. All right, now this, everybody's seen this, at least images of this monument, where Abraham Lincoln looks very, very stern. He's thinking really, really hard. When the sculptor was doing this, somebody else wanted to light his sculpture so that everybody could see all aspects of it. And French specifically designed this so that the shadows had a big role to play. What's the biggest difference between these two photos that you can see? How does Abraham Lincoln look on the left? I'm just looking for a couple single word answers. How does Abraham look on the left? Do you think he's...
Serious.
Yeah, he's serious. Excellent. How about on the right?
He almost looks surprised on the right.
Yes, exactly. Very good. Yeah. But you can see it's exactly the same position. What's the only difference between those two photos?
The direction of the lighting.
Yes, precisely. If I remember right, French actually did 6 different versions of the lighting. And he was doing this specifically. Do you remember what he was trying to get funds for? Or can anybody guess what he was getting funds for?
I think it was to get artificial lighting that he could control.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And by showing this to the people that had control over the money, they had wanted him to do this because they wanted a very serious, contemplative Lincoln. And by him showing examples of what would happen if he couldn't control the light, it seems like the decision on their part was a no-brainer, doesn't it? How important is it for you as an artist to control the environment of where your art is going to be displayed?
Well, it's very important. It's not something I really thought about until I saw these two pictures, the difference that it can make.
Yeah, I think all of us have done work that if it's in a children's show, it's going to be received completely different than if it's in a show for contemporaries. Or if we're trying to sell stuff and you get the spot that's like across the hallway from the bathroom door instead of in the main gallery, I mean that's a huge difference. So yeah, I think that this is a very interesting thing to think about. So yeah, French was trying to show how important controlled lighting was, and he was trying to get funds for the lighting. So very good answers. Okay, we're going to talk about this really briefly. It talks about this in the text: relief, frontal, fully round, and walkthrough. Can anybody give me an example of a relief work? And until the national shortage of this material, everybody had some of these in their pockets or their bags or their backpacks. Can anybody give me an example of relief work? The example that I'm thinking about specifically is a coin. A coin is a sculpture, but it's designed specifically to be seen from one angle, and it is designed specifically to be able to be stamped. Or old coins used to be cast sometimes. So they're designed to only have the three dimensionality in a relief format. Excuse me. How about frontal? Can anybody think of any examples of a frontal work? Have you folks ever seen the governmental buildings that will have like a almost a diorama between the roof line and the top of the entrance? There's like a lot of the times there'll be a triangular space, and you'll see some sort of of an image representing governmental activity or historical event. Has anybody ever seen any of that, anything like that? A lot of the times you see them on like Greek and Roman type things where they'll have images or even scenes. Arc de Triomphe has this on a couple of the sides. It's basically, that is an example of frontal. So even their sculptural work, you can only really experience it as you come to the front of the building. If we compare that to fully round, what do you think the difference is between frontal and fully round?
You can experience fully round from any perspective.
Yeah, that's very true. And I was also thinking that the frontal, a lot of the times you'll see these churches or really old governmental buildings that will have niches, you know, little spaces carved out and a statue set there. And even if though the statue might be carved three-dimensionally, you can only see it from one point of view. So yeah, but yeah, fully round, you can experience from any side. What's the difference, do you think, between fully round and walkthrough?
I think walkthrough tries to like immerse the person in the experience so that it's happening like around them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Can anybody think of an example of walkthrough that you experience every day? A really common example of walkthrough sculptural work or three-dimensional work is architecture. They're designed specifically, architecture is designed specifically for us to experience as a walkthrough work. So that's a good example of art as practical use all the time. So does everybody have a handle on these 4 different degrees of three-dimensionality?
Can you just explain what the difference is between relief and frontal? They seem very similar to me.
Right. The biggest difference is that relief is designed specifically so that perhaps you could stamp it or cast it. Maybe that's not exactly what the artist is looking through or considering at the time that it's made, but it is really rare that you're going to have a lot of undercuts, for example. Frontal generally will have, it could be a fully round three-dimensional sculpture, but it's just set into a niche or into an environment so you can only experience from one perspective. And that's the biggest difference. The relief is designed to only be seen from one point of view, and the frontal is set so you can only access it from one point of view. Another big difference is that relief will be like a bas relief, where things will be pulled from a surface like so that there's no undercuts. The frontal could be an example. An example of that is frieze. Look up this word. It's Frieze. You see this in a lot of monumental, governmental, and what's the word? Commemorative work in classical European type stuff like Roman, Etruscan, and Greek, where you will have like the scene from a battle where people will be holding spears and things like that, but it will be set just under the roof line of a public works building, so that even though it does have the undercuts, you can only see it or access it from one point of view. And that's a big difference. Relief is designed from the get-go to be built from only one point of view, and frontal is designed so that you can only see it from one point of view. Does that answer the question?
It does, thank you.
Okay. When last time I went to Europe, there were several churches that I saw they had these shallow little kind of arched little niches in them where three-dimensional sculptures were done and built and then put into these niches, and everybody walking by could only see the front of them, which is kind of sad because the artist spent time on the back as well, and nobody ever will see that except for the birds that roost in there. And that's another good example of the frontal. Now there is a specific passage in the text where it talks about these 9 works, or I'm sorry, the 9 ways of involving the viewer. And I'm sorry, I don't have the pages right in front of me, but some of the words that have been used to involve the viewer are things like shifting in scale. Color sometimes will involve the viewer, but what you'll do is go through these first 2 chapters, and in one of the chapters there is a passage of about 7 or 8 pages where it talks specifically about different ways that you can involve a viewer. And you don't need to list all 9, and there are 9 of them. You don't need to list all 9 of them, but you do need to talk about 5 of them. The times that people have lost points on this have been because they'll mention one of those 9 ways of involving people and then fail to describe it at all. And I'm kind of quiet because I'm trying to find the direct reference in the textbook so I can give you the page. Let's see. Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, this starts on page 18 and the subheading involving the viewer. It talks about visual appeal, engaging curiosity, representation. Representation has a direct reference to using the material to mimic something else. Abstraction and stylization is another way. Scale is another one. Content, personal interaction. A lot of the times when an artist will write some sort of explanatory paragraph about their work, that involves the personal interaction. So again, that list goes from page 18 to page 30. So just again, you'll look at the 9, you'll pick out the 5 that are most intriguing to you, and then this answer will be you list one of the ones that are intriguing to you, and then describe in 7 words what that is. Does that make sense? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right, excellent. Thank you. Now I'm going to stop screen share, and I'm going to switch to the next quiz, and we're going to do the same thing with the next quiz, okay? Let's see. Just give me just a second here. And I am so old. My kids are laughing at me because I said I was excited. I set up a channel on the YouTube. They said, "Dad, it's just called YouTube. You don't have to say the." Okay. All right. 6, 7. Okay, we have another person that joined us since I talked about roll. Let's see. Lauren, you're a new one. Is that true?
Yes, it is. My alarm didn't go off this morning.
I hate that. Okay, the second code word is, let's see, we did banana. Let's do turquoise. All right. So when I go through with these live action ones, I say live action, I don't know, the live Teams meetings, I'll mark your presence with, I have just a green pen. And then when you send me code words for any of the ones that you go through, I mark that in just a regular black pen. But as long as you have 5 green checks, then you're good and you have full attendance for the live part. And as long as you send me in all the code words for the others, you get credit for being there too. So that's how I'm doing that. I'm going to write that up and send that out to everybody, hopefully by tomorrow. But I imagine I'm going to try to get to that next quiz today before we separate. And then on Thursday, I want to talk about the projects as well. Talk a little bit more about that. And maybe before I go on to the next quiz, how have you guys been doing? Let's see. Emily, you just showed up? Emily? How have you guys been doing with making the little houses? Did that website that I sent everybody to, the link to, did that help you guys?
Which
which website was it? Was it the polyhedra.net or was it a different one?
The polyhedra.net was before the first day of class.
Oh, okay.
The little house site, I included in the project description.
Okay. Gotcha.
Did anybody go and visit that?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was helpful.
Okay, good. Because these houses are not designed to be something that you will want to display in the future for a nationally juried show, but they are designed to be something that will be interesting for you to photograph. And I think I have the due date for that being Wednesday, but I honestly expect people to work on it through the weekend. So we're kind of overlapping two different things at the same time, and that's totally fine. Yeah, go to that website, get some cool ideas, make sure your house is really neat. Has anybody already uploaded any photos to the discussion?
I've finished my house, but I haven't taken any photos yet.
Okay. That's several people that have done this have taken like 30 or 40 photos just going around, and they just upload the 5 or 6 coolest ones. And you can do some of the places you can take it with you to work. I've seen people like put it in the fridge and take a photo as they're opening the fridge and see it. But I've also seen people set their camera up behind it so that the camera's looking out of the fridge, and the house is like really big because the camera's right next to it. I've also seen people take this on trips and picnics and all sorts of stuff, photographing it wherever they are. So I'd say take it with you and just have fun photographing it during the day, and then see whatever cool images you've got. Does anybody remember the example of what not to do with this?
I was to like make a diorama and just take it in one spot with like the diorama around it.
Yeah, and I think that I'm glad you read that, because I think it's a really good example of wasted opportunity. Taking photos of this at all times during the day really helps to just kind of have fun exploring the idea that French was talking about when he was applying for lighting. It just helps us to be really aware of how light and control over just the recording aspect of our work can help to strengthen our message, or sometimes it can help to alter the message in unexpected ways as well. All right, excellent. Now, let's see. I think I set it up. Okay, I've set it up. We're going to go to the next quiz. Unless you guys, does anybody have any last questions before we move on? I will take that as a no. So let's see. All right, here we go. All of you guys are professional artists. All of you guys know the power of the line. Which type of line, in your experience, is the most calm and peaceful?
Is it horizontal?
Yes, absolutely. Water always flows flat. It always tries to make sure that the surface is even. And so my kids, the way that they remember this is that water is always flat, and so horizontal is always calm. Yeah, it's at rest. It's not going anywhere. So very good. Now, there are several different unifying principles of design. Can you guys, can anybody mention some of the ones that you are aware of just in your own work as a professional artist? which of you work with graphic arts, like magazine layouts and stuff like that? Or do we have any professional photographers? Can any of you share with me one of the design principles you've learned in one of the classes that you've taken? I think one that comes to my mind right away, especially for layout artists and photographers, is the rule of thirds, governing placement in a static image. Can anybody else think of any ones?
Contrast?
Yeah, that's a good one. Contrast both of light and dark as well as color. That's a good one. How about another one?
Harmony and balance.
Yeah, very good. So you guys, you're all professional artists. You all know about these things. Now, and the question for this, for number 2, is, are the unifying principles of design absolute rules? Would anybody like to tackle this? In your own work, are you constrained or shackled by the principles of design? Kira or Emily, do you feel that the unifying principles of design, or Lauren, do you feel that the unifying principles of design are absolute and required to make good stuff?
I don't know if I would necessarily say it's like required to make it good, but I feel like it's a good place to kind of start, or a good base for your work. It helps a lot instead of just kind of trying to do whatever.
Okay, I think that that is one of the best answers for question number 2. That's exactly right. They are not, the unifying principles of design are not, I think, to force you to be the same as everybody else. They're things to help you as you make the choices that you make when you produce stuff. So they are not absolute rules. I think that your answer is just about the best one I've heard. So excellent, very good. And that's the answer to question 2. Now, if you do believe that they are absolute rules, either way, just add a little bit about why you think that. So that's all you've got to do to answer this one. So yes, very good. Okay, now this is, anybody know the math definition of a line? Shortest distance between what?
2 points.
Exactly. Now from the text, how is that different? Does anybody know? Or have, actually most of you don't have your textbook yet. In the text, what it talks about, the simplest definition of a line deals with mark making. And it says that, and they say that the simplest definition in the text is a mark that is significantly longer than it is wide. And that's it. So when I can always tell, this is the question, when somebody doesn't have their textbook, I can always tell, because what do you think they answer? It's the shortest distance between 2 points thing. So what did we say that the textbook describes as a line?
It's a mark that's longer than its width.
Yes, perfect. Exactly. So that's the answer to that one. Now here's a good one. Do you believe that, or do you agree that we have a tendency to create order out of chaos? Now, you can believe either way. It doesn't matter. The way to get points on this question is to explain your answer. Now, in my observation, more often than not, human beings seem to have a tendency to create order out of chaos. That's how we remember things. We internalize, we make internal maps so we can find our ways around. We do things specifically to categorize and organize and prioritize information so we can function. And I think that has a lot to do with art, because even if you're expressing abstract concepts, even if you're trying to show emotion, you're doing that in a way that implies order, because you're creating some sort of a visual vocabulary through which you wish to communicate with your audience. But if you don't feel that that's applicable, that we don't have a tendency to create order out of chaos, I would really like to hear your explanation for that too. So how do you get credit for question number 4? Whether or not you agree with it, how do you get credit?
Explain your reasoning.
Yes, exactly. And you only need to do that in a sentence or two. But yes, very good. Does anybody know what the golden section is? It's been said that the Pythagoreans were the first group of people to be able to quantify how God built the universe. Of course, that was said by somebody who is a Christian. So I think perspectives will change quite a bit. But the golden section is something that is, I don't know, it's an interesting thing. It's a mathematical construct, but it seems to be prevalent, at least on a peripheral level, in every culture on the planet, because it's evidenced in architecture and the design of other living spaces, all the way to perceptions on the idealized human form and what physical beauty means. Does anybody know what the golden section is? It is a ratio. I'm sorry. Go for it. Say it.
Sorry, I can't remember the name, but it's the spiral.
Yeah, there's a golden section spiral, and it's developed from a specific ratio. And that ratio, what's that?
The Fibonacci?
Yeah, Fibonacci, the mathematician, saw this ratio in the branching of tendrils and the shapes of leaves. And it's actually, there's a Dr. Winter, who is one of the founders of what we consider now as nuclear physics. He describes that this golden section is evident in how atoms connect with each other and make molecules. But it's a specific ratio, and the ratio is 1 to 1.618. And this is also in your textbook. What is interesting about this is you will find that you will automatically use this in all the artwork that you do, whether or not you're aware of it, because it is so thoroughly ingrained in human awareness. This is this ratio, 1 to 1.618, or the Fibonacci sequence, which is 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, and on from there. This talks about how the length of one joint of one of your fingers is in relation to the next one over. This talks about the palm of your hand and the shape of your hand as a whole, the shape of the screen and the layout of your apps on your phone, the computer screen that you're using right now to access this, where all the buttons are on it, the papers that you use, the notebooks that you use, the clothes that you wear, how cars are designed. This golden section ratio even deals on a chemical level, on a physics level, with how materials interact with each other in an environment, from how water erodes rock to how clouds form and dissipate, the color of the sky. There was a survey done between 1999 and 2003 of over 50,000 stars in the sky, and they were finding that the redshift patterns of these stars reflected the golden section ratio. The atmosphere on Saturn, how megaclusters form beyond us in the outside universe. NASA's realizing that these relationships are based also on the golden section. So the answer to this question is golden section is a ratio 1 to 1.618 that we automatically use, or that most humans automatically use to kind of reference beauty and balance. But it is pretty, and it's interesting that it's everywhere, even including your DNA. This is evidence in the helix of the DNA. So and you know, when you see that spiral, I can show you how to draw that spiral, but it's all based on rectangles and squares that are in golden section ratio to each other. And what's fascinating is that human beings are aware of this and respond to this without it being able to define it, regardless of education level or technology level. Babies will respond to the face of a caregiver in direct relationship to how that face is shaped in relation to the golden section, or how the emotions are displayed in relation to the golden section on that face. Isn't that interesting? But this is reflected in everything from atom interaction all the way to how mega clusters in our outside of the universe come together, how the gravity pulls them together. I just think that that's fascinating. And we use it all the time, whether or not we intend to. So last question on this, what is the ratio of the golden section?
1 to 1.618.
Yes, very good. All right, and remember that we had that line question about what is the most relaxed line. Which of these lines has the most energy?
Is it diagonal?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Can you imagine why?
I think it shows more movement.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. A couple people have answered vertical, and although vertical does have a lot more energy than horizontal, it's still at a state of rest. And I think diagonal, it feels like it's moving, doesn't it? Whether or not it's static, your mind is still considering it falling over. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Now in the textbook, and I'm going to try to find the page number really quick for this, there are 7 unifying principles of design. We already talked about how they are important, but they are not the end-all be-all, which means that your piece will not fail utterly and miserably if you do not completely follow the unifying principles of design. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to find it in the textbook. I don't really see it right away. Some of these unifying principles of design deal with like rhythm. how things relate to each other. Let's see, and as soon as I can find this page, I will share it with everybody. Huh. Oh, that's right. I'm looking in the wrong chapter. That's silly. Okay. Starting on page 62 is where it talks about the unifying principles of design. Some of them include repetition and variety. Some of them include balance is included, and as well as economy. And proportion is a really good one. So the pages to look at for the 7 unifying principles of design are pages 62 to 75. Has everybody got that? And there are 7 principles that are outlined in the text. To get full points for this, all you got to do is write down what those 7 are. Okay? Now, here's a good question. How is an implied line created? Have any of you, in the work that you've done, created an implied line in one of your pieces before? By the way, the third code word is spider. Does anybody know what an implied line is?
Is that where you make a shape but you don't completely finish it so that the person's eye and brain have to complete it for themselves?
Yeah, that's a really good example. That is the first one. Our brains, I don't know, I think in order to make sense of the world, our brains want to finish stuff. And so when you create something like that, you are directly involving the viewer because they're compelled to finish it somehow in their imagination. So yeah, excellent. That's a very good example. And I think there's a second type that is really important as well. The first one, like you just said, is completing the shape or completing a line, where you have an area missing and the person finishes it up. Have you ever found yourself in a group of people where one person looks at something and then everybody else turns to look as well? Has anybody had that experience? Have any of you had that experience?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. What compelled you to look? And how did you know where to look?
Well, just the curiosity of where the other person's eyes are looking.
Excellent. Perfect. That is a really good example. The second way an implied line is created, you follow the eye line, the sight line. And I think it's funny. You don't need to know that anything's there. You don't need to hear a sound. When you see that somebody is looking at something, all of us almost all of us just seem to automatically turn and look as well. So yeah, that's an excellent example. So those 2 are leaving a portion out so that the person has to finish it. And then the second is sight lines. If you have something in your artwork with that's recognizable as eyes, where those eyes are directed, that creates an implied line as well. Now, there's others too that are going to be talked about in the text, but those are the first 2 that come to my mind. So either of those is great. So good examples, guys. Excellent. What is the intent of a work of art? Can any of you speak to this?
I think I can. I think that it's just like share or transmit like some feeling to someone or to somebody. Yeah, like I guess like the artist has something that wants to share with the other people, and like the way to express it is by doing a work of art.
That is an excellent answer. That is absolutely right. I think that's about the best way to put it too. The intent, we're not looking for a specific intent like to cause unrest or to make people happy, but the intent that this refers to is what is that aspect of creation of the work of art. And what you just said nails it on the head. The artist is trying to communicate something or express something, and that is the motivator for why they created the work of art, and that is the intent. So excellent, very good answer. I'm getting some good answers from you guys. I really appreciate that. Now here's a really good one, and I know all of you are professional artists, so you know the answer to this right away, and I'd like to hear from just one person. Do you feel it is possible to predictably evoke emotions through the use of different line qualities? And to get points on this, all you've got to do is answer that and then justify your response with at least one example. And this can just be 2 sentences long. Do you feel it is possible to predictably evoke emotions through the use of line quality? Can anybody speak to that?
I think that like it's possible. I'm just like thinking of so last semester I did a project where there were like different lines, like they have like different kind of spacing, but they were like parallel to each other. So like I don't know, I just thought that looked really organized. But then in the same project I did one where the lines were kind of like a scribble, and that just made like a feeling of like messiness, or a feeling of like, I don't know, like it was just like disorganized per se. So I think that the different lines that we use in the projects, they do transmit different emotions.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's a really good example. And if anybody does anything like illustration or typography work, any sort of layouts, the two things that seem to be the most strong manipulators of emotions or evocations of emotions are the use of line quality and color. So yeah, very much so. And you can, like you just said, there are some line qualities that are calming, and there are others that we just respond to a little frantically. So yeah, very good. And that brings us. That was our last question of the quiz. So this is what I'd like to do. Like every week, like next Monday, we'll go over quiz number 3, and we'll just go over them. I don't think I've released this particular module yet, but I wanted everybody to take notes, and I'll release it later on today. I think I have to go through and edit it a little bit more. Let's see. But this is the kind of thing that I want to do every week, so we can go over the quiz so you guys are better prepared as you read your textbook and learn from that. Now, does anybody, we have like less than 10 minutes left together today. Does anybody have any questions about what's going on, how they're doing with their houses or anything like that? I'm hoping to see some images up before too long, so we can, and I'll try to show some of those, next time we're together, because I think those would be really interesting. Anybody have any questions about those? How about with the annotated bibliography or the artist selection? Any questions regarding the artist review? Yeah, I'm just going to pull up really quickly this the website that I referred people to, just to get some ideas, some creative ideas for you as you make your project. And it might be interesting to go back through and add some of this to the house that you've already made. But those file folders, the scissors and tape and stuff like that, those are all designed, and the rulers, those are all in your kits to help produce this. Have all of you guys gotten your kits? Or maybe I should say, has anybody not received their kit? Lauren, did you get your kit?
Yes, I did.
All right. Excellent. Let's see, I don't, the reason I called your name specifically is I did not have it down as having the kit. Let's see. And it looks like everybody else that's here today has already gotten their kit. Okay, excellent. That very good. It does kind of look like the preschool supply room blew up, but each of those things will be used for specific projects as we go forward. So has everybody seen this? What can you guys all see this website on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I honestly did not expect you guys to have animation in your images. I think that would be way too much. But what I love about this is that this person has made several very simple homes, and like this green apple one right here, that reminds me of the polyhedra.net exercise, and we'll talk about that on Thursday. But all these homes, I think for the most part, would be really interesting to photograph. I kind of like this green one right here, the green and blue one with the curving. There's no sharp corners. I kind of like that. I think that would be really interesting to photograph because it'd be totally different. I also like this one with the red and gray. It has some really interesting features of it that light would do some fun things with. But there's a lot of examples, and honestly, I don't want anybody to copy any of these. That's not the point of showing you. It's just to give you ideas. Like this kind of lighthouse kind of structure there. That might be an interesting home to make. Did anybody find some really cool stuff in these images to work with and incorporate into their homes they made? I think this orange one is kind of cool right here too. Does anybody have any issues or problems with the things they're working on?
I do have a question. I remember in one of the I think it was like the first video, you said that so for the houses we need to put different like materials just to like make them more, I guess, interesting. But I just want to like make sure that that's right, or
What I was trying to express was it's going to make it more interesting to photograph if you have different textures. And you can do any sort of a number of different things on that. Some people have just used the file folders themselves to add texture, like cutting or shaping the tag board. Other people have actually found materials, like one person glued bits of bark on the roof, and somebody else covered elements of the house with aluminum foil. And I think anything that you could do that kind of add an element of interest or interaction with the light when you photograph might make it more successful as you go about your photography. Does that make does that answer your question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, folks, I really appreciate you being here today. We got all three of those code words down. You that were here don't need to send me those because I've already got you marked down, but everybody else that watches this later will. And you just need the 8 people that were here today, you just need to go through 4 more of these by the end of the term, and you're good for the attendance, for live action attendance, and then live action, whatever, in-person attendance. Please make sure that you keep track of the YouTube channel for the class, and make sure that you sign up to receive notifications right away in case you miss any of these activities that we have. We will also be talking next week about the artist research and the different kinds of aspects of videos that you need to do to turn in. And these can be as simple as recording your voice over a PowerPoint presentation, as long as you save it as an MOV, WAV, or MP4, or even recording a video on your phone as your phone is pointed towards your work of art that you're critiquing. And these are not designed to be very long. In fact, the artist research one, if you go over 10 minutes, you start losing points. So they're not designed to be long. And I would recommend also look at examples of artistic critique and the artist research that is on our YouTube channel, just so you get an idea of what other people are doing. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll look forward to seeing you guys later on Thursday. And please email me with any questions you have. I'm trying to go through Monday through Saturday. I try to get to the email within 24 hours or less. And I'm trying to stay on top of grading so everybody knows exactly where they're standing, because we've got to move really fast. I really appreciate you guys being with me. Thank you, and I hope you guys have a wonderful Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am ending the recording now.